Good evening. Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me to Madron History Group. All right. I thought you was leaving. I thought not enough of them already. Did you want to put? Did you want to put the lights down or no? It's up to you. You're in charge. Okay. Now we're going to look at this. Look, this is Hayle, 1877. A dirtier, squallier, less interesting town than Hayle is not to be found in all of Cornwall. Its population composed of fishermen and miners, labourers, and its 2 iron foundries or 10 smelting works, a railway employee. So therefore, we recommend the tourists to leave Hayle as quickly as they entered it. Alright? That was in one of my books, 1877. I don't think it's changed at all now, really. I put in a little bit about Hayle, and then we'll be going over to the North Quay. The hands there like that, they belong to my lady wife because I'm not a very good photographer, but this is what Mervyn painted as well. You can down see on Pempo Terrace there. That's the big painting. That's all done by the late Mervyn Sullivan. That's just plantation. I'll go on from that. I've been told I can only talk for 2 hours, so this is just an old photograph of the mill pond as it was. There we go. The Puffin Devil. As we know, this was the first steam car, and it was designed and it was built in Hayle, but it didn't go on the road in Hayle. It went to Camborne, up behind Tyax. They had a foundry, but it was all built in Hayle. Richard Trevor was the designer of that. Of course, his brother-in-law was Henry Harvey. Richard Trevor married Jane Harvey, and this was the first one, and that was the one on the road, 24th of December, 1801. I'll tell you a little bit about the Harveys at the minute, because John Harvey, he was 1730 to 1803, and Henry Harvey, he was 1775 to 1850. But he married, and then Henry was single. But he had a lady friend, I think when we was here last time, called Grace Tonkin, and she had 10 children by him. And then his sister Jane, because Richard went over to South America in 1817 for 11 years, so then he took on her 6 children. This is Henry Harvey, single man, and then sadly one of his sisters died, and she left 6 children, so with single man in Hayle with 22 children. And anyhow, of course, Richard Trevor was born in 1771. Jane Trevor was born in 1772, married in 1797, he died in 1833, and she lived till 1868. She lived up Foundry Hill, 1868. So she was 96 when she died. This is the steam train, this is in Penny Dower. Richard Trevor for a bet, 1804, Richard Trevor for a bet converted that car to a train, took 5 carriages, 70 people, 9.1 miles, won his bet. That's the first train in the world. I don't think neither one of them would pass MOT now. We're coming up to the quay in a minute, but this is 1860s. This bridge there, this is the foundry, Harvest Foundry, as I said, they come down in 1779. They carried on harvested from 1903. But that bridge there was designed by Isambard Kingdom Brunel. That's in the early 1860s. That was only a single track. There's a train going Penzance. So the actual, that one was 1860, and then we'll go back to the next one in a minute. This is Foundry Square there. That was Lloyd's Bank. Anybody that goes been into Hayle, you're driving through pretty quick. It used to be 2-storied. That was a cinema. All this got burnt down in 1935. There's the White Hart, 1838. But that wasn't the first White Hart, that's the first White Hart there. That's the Masonic Lodge, 1824. That's what Henry Harvey had built for Jane. Now, this is all linking in with Isambard Kingdom Brunel. You go on the bridge, they say the 2nd of May, 1859, when all this was put. All these were made, all the links were made by the Cornish Copper Company up Copperhouse. That's why you had 2 towns. Harvest and Foundry, Cornish Copper up there. And that's why you see, Isambard Kingdom Brunel, he wanted them done by the Cornish Copper Company. They weren't made of copper because they were smelting copper from, let's see, 1756 to 1803. And then they found an open cast mining in Wales, in Pennydower, in North Wales, and then they went over then to iron, to cast in iron, same as Harvest, and they carried on till 1867. Then they went bust, and Harvest bought them out. I want to point this bit out there, that there centre pillar there is 80 feet down to get to bedrock. You think they had to do this, look? 1859, there's what you talk about engineers, isn't it? You know, 1859. Now, Isambard Kingdom Brunel, he died in 1859, but he did come down and go across that bridge. I wouldn't have been like the first train going over, would you? A long way in case there's any problems. But anyhow, and he died in September 1859. And then people go on about the Clifton Suspension Bridge. He designed all this, and they had the drawings. But the Bristol Council would never ever agree. They said you couldn't span that gorge. Well, of course they did. But that wasn't completed until 1864. We never saw the Clifton Suspension Bridge completed. Here we go, coming in. Here's St Ives there. I don't mention a lot about St Ives. Anybody here from St Ives? Anyhow, no, there we go. This is the main river. This is going up the Cornish Copper Company, and this is into Arbus of Hayle. I'll go on from that. You don't want to look at that too much. Here we go. North Quays. This is South Quay, East Quay, and North Quay. Anybody goes over Hayle now, you go by Sammy Philps' pasty shop, look there, there's a big hole. Part of the harbour wall is caved in this week. So just be careful over there at the moment. But this is where Asda is now. This was completed by Henry Arby by Henry Arby, because John had died in 1803 and Henry Arby took over. By 1818, that was the South Quay there. Of course, this East Quay was built by the Cornish Copper Company because they was right up by Copperhouse and they needed an access to come up with their boats. So they built this quay and they got you can see a sluice gates there, and you could walk to Copperhouse, there's sluice gates there. And the idea was they could hold all the water back, then sluice it, and then all the sand so that their boats could come in. But it caused a problem because there's Henry building this, and then all the sand was coming out here and blocking his. So then he had to build sluice gates there. So this is Carnsue there. That's where the sluice gates are. But anyhow, what I was going to say was, the East Quay, they built it, but they had to hand it over to Harbours of Hayle because he could prove that they built on some of his land, even though it was in the river. So we went to court and won. So eventually, East Quay come back to Harbours of Hayle. This is the electric works, as you can see there in 1910. They needed electric, even in Hayle they wanted electric, but they wanted to provide electric to the mines and all, and coming over to Lillent and St Ives for houses and industry that was going on. They needed, of course, railway. Well, there was a railway on North Quay. They needed access with boats. Well, of course, they got the sea there, and of course, they wanted thousands of tons of coal. So this was where it was decided to build Hayle Electric Works. This is 100 days into it. And by 1911, the end of 1911, they were producing electricity. Here we are, early 1911. There's the track, you see the tracks and all there. So they had all the infrastructure that they needed to build this. It's June 1911. Now, you know this is an older photo because you've got chimneys there, but as they was going on and producing more, they needed bigger generators, etc. So they had to keep building chimneys and one thing and another. But to get the electric over to Lillent and to St Ives, they had to put pylons up. Like that. That's how the electric was over this way. But they also sent the electric up to Doe Cove and all the mines up there. This is where they went both ways. But in 1921, of course, Harbours had finished, I said, 1903, and then Wards, they were scrap metal merchants, they come and bought the South Quay, and they decided some of the Grand Fleet could come into Hayle to be scrapped, because Harbours of Hayle had built 79 ships, and then they were scrapping them, so this is 1921. What they forgot was, when they take all the good bits out of the ship, the tides in, because they measured it for the pylons, and this is what happened. The funnels pulled all the towers down. So the people down St Ives Way, they weren't very happy down there at all. So, now this here is, anybody know when we used to see the electric works? We in Hayle called it a tripod. This is where the water would come in, be sucked in and go into the electric works. It's the only tripod that we know in the country that's got 4 sides. I just say we down Hayle here, we kind of go up to 3 and then we've had it. Of course, over there is Lelant. One of the most, well, we had a Lelant ferry, you had a gentleman, I call him a gentleman, called Mr. Cooch. That's the gentleman that we knew. And he lived over there, and you'd be over here and we'd call over to Mr. Cooch who wanted to go across to go to Lelant or something, so he'd get in his boat. His vocabulary wasn't all that smart, he only knew a few words, and the children, if you don't keep quiet, I'll chuck you in. But he would row over, and then, of course, especially for youngsters, they would then run off. So, anyway, he was the last known ferry that went across in Hayle there. Now, this is in the early 30s. This is looking down on the electric works. You see there, that's the electric works there itself. Now, where are we going on? That's next. Here we are. This is, the station was upgraded, it said 1938, with 3 24-inch diameter pumps. As I said, there was nothing like what you'll see in a minute to what it was in the beginning. Unloading coal in the 1950s there, as I said, all the coal was coming from South Wales, so they needed to keep, of course the Hayle bar was very famous for lots and lots of ships on the bar itself. Anybody ever seen the lights on the land side on poles that would light up when you're out at sea, and they would go green, and then you know it was safe to come in? Well, I've got one of them now in my garden. From 1941, it's all grass and cover, so he's in my garden now. He don't light up much, but this is a miners' strike, 72. So that was what really was the demise of the power station down here, or part of it anyway. Anybody remember the cranes? 4 big cranes on there working all the time. This is just, I say, this is just showing you what the size of the electric works really was. 2 brothers, I went to talk up Reduce recently, and they were called Dunstan. They put in both of them their stacks, they put in over 1 million bricks. 2 brothers, and I happened to meet their 3 sisters doing a talk, so I went home and found a bit of paper that was all talking about them, and I took it back to them a couple of weeks later just to show them. This is the back elevation of the electric works itself. Now, electric works closed in 1976. As I said, because of economics, it was never worth it. And these 2 chimneys were demolished in 1981.
We used to line up our golf shops on the fourth ferry.
Yeah.
And the 4th team, they looked straight out the chimneys, and that's we were hitting the goal. So they didn't know where we were going.
Here we are. That's a demolition in 1981. Now, we're talking about the calcinate and arsenic works I put there, but the calcinating, if you go over there now on North Quay, you want a little flat nose, there's 1 million, that's all they are, if you want 1 or 2. But if you go over there now, that there is still there. It was a lot taller. We're looking at the calcinating works. They used to take all the waste from the mines and bring them over there to get the arsenic out in 1849 to the 1900s. And then it became a glassworks in 1917 to 1925, and the only reason it only lasted 8 years because they could not produce clear glass. When we looked at the ICI works in a minute, you'll see that it used to be a wall with all glass, but over now they could produce brown, green, blue, etc., but they could never produce clear glass. That was the reason why it was only there for a short time. Now, over by the bluff, people don't realise this, but there's a mine over by the bluff, so be careful. They're running across the grass, you might go down. This is the waste being tipped on the beach there. That was Reverend Ocken, was the vicar over in Phillip then, and this was, he named it Wheel Lucy, the name of his daughter, but it was not very successful. A lot of people, when we talk about the youth hostel that's over on King George's Walk, the big house that's over there, youth hostel, there is a tunnel over there. They used to say it's a smuggler's, but I've got lots of reports that says that tunnel went from what we call the youth hostel right over to Wheel Lucy. I've actually got to, it's a job to see them really. Now, this is next one we're coming to now is right where next to the electric works, GC3. Now this is, I call it ICI, Associated Octal, people call it. It's too big a word to me when I was younger, ICI. We always thought we made lipstick there. And it did stink, didn't it? Bromine is an element from the sea using warm water. That was from the electric works, from the turbines. And they had to have warm water. They could not, ethyl dibromide comes from warm water. That's why they couldn't have it up in the north. We were at war near enough, 1939, with Germany. We was getting this ethyl dibromide from France. Of course, the Germans took it all over. They never knew that that was called GC3, that was being built. We needed one in this country, and this is where it was, down on the North Quay. Used for octane boosters. Also make ethyl dibromide. Site was cleared 23rd of August, look. Production began in July 1940. Molems were the main contractors, 450 men, 80 hours a week. 1939, 1940 was the coldest winter on record. But look, they was up and running by July 1940. Dingles Oberdroof built a culvert to outfall by the swimming pool. This is where I think here we go. I'm talking about Carnsue. If you go where Asda is now, and then you go over there, it's called the Spit. The bit of ground that people walk their dogs is called the Spit. Well, this here is Carnsue Pool. Henry Harvey had it built in 1834. As I said, all the problems with the sand silting up everywhere. And if you look, well, we can go over there now, you can see they got gates for sluicing. And when they built GC3, or Associated Octal, they needed at least 2 million gallons of water an hour to go through that factory to produce the ethyl dibromide. So, there is a tunnel from Carnsue going always underneath, and that went right up to the electric works. So then the water will go to the electric works through the turbines, etc., and then straight into the GC3, and then eventually outfall by the swimming pool. Now, we can see this as an aerial photograph. There's Carnsue Pool. That just points out, so they built the tunnel then from there all the way over to there. Now, you can hardly see this, but this is when they started, look, see, 1940. I want to just point out as well that there, you see nothing, it's just a plain of buildings. And, north to south, this is what they needed to get ethyl dibromide, soda ash at solar vans, blown out towers. I'm not a chemist or anything like that, but that's what they needed to get them thing. And this was all to do with what's called the alkaline process. So we started in 1940, and again they needed the railway lines to bring in chlorine with sulfuric acid, and they produced 2,500 tons per year. Sulfuric acid was delivered by a fleet of 20 railway tankers. It used to come in from Hayle and then cross over the main road. That's just the raw materials. I don't think you really want to see all this. This was the alkaline process was from 1940 to 1954. There's the sulfur store there. And that added up to 1,200 tons of sulfuric. Then, in 1949, where the glassworks was, they built their own sulfuric acid plant. So when they're up there digging now, if anybody go over and see all the sand, I have been over and tell them it'd be lovely to dig up 2 nice big bottles full of sulfuric acid or something. They had to get rid of a lot of it at the end. Now, there's your electric cranes again there, but just there you can hardly see it, but also we have running on the quays the steam-powered cranes. Now, in 1954, the alkaline plant closes, and that's what it says, 43,400 tons of bromine produced. Now, 1956, you look here, look, there's different, same building altogether, but they had what you call, well, extractors, like 2 giant extractors. You should see one on them in a thing there, and that was more blowing in air. They had to do it more. So then there's the extractor there. Look, they had 2 of them on there. Now this is over in North Hayle. I was very fortunate, as I said, I've been over there, and I got involved with them. You know, giving them pictures and history and one thing and plans and everything like this. They rung me up one day. They're over there now. This is on the GC3 plant. It's where they got that big tall building on Garfield School, you know, that big building now. They rung me up and they said they come across all these funny tanks. Could I come over and have a look? So I went over there and I went back and had a look at a couple of books. You imagine in 1954, as I said, they closed, they shut it down for 2 years. What the men was told to do then, because these cylinders were 14 feet high, the mixing tanks were 14 feet high, and they had a special bricks. I got 12 of them home. I'm very fortunate to have 12. Because of the acid, they couldn't just have normal bricks. They'd have bricks with glass involved in it. So and they said they had a pump in the middle. When the men were told to get rid of them, what they did is they went in and cut them off ground levels, and then they poured 12 inches of concrete on the top. And then they carried on with the next. So when they dug up, they didn't know what they was looking at, but we cleared all that. So they went to the acid process. This began in 1956. Okay, this process being more economic. And of course, they require 16 tons of chlorine. The capacity to produce 5,000 tons of bromine per year. But like everything else, we'll go on from them. This is just a view. There's the extractors there now. Look, you see, this is what they changed about on the buildings. A lot of these buildings were actually bomb-proof. When this North Quay went over there, they thought they could just get in with a bit of a machine and dig and thing and blow up a little bit. Didn't work like that. Some of these walls were over 3 feet thick. I think that's where a lot of their money's gone to. That's what it actually looked like. There's the railway lines, look. There's the 2 extractors there. Of course, again, sadly, like everything else, the sidings for unloading and unloading. There's the wall that was built all the way around because we were never allowed to go over there, but all this wall was lined with glass. If you decided to jump up, you certainly cut your hands. That's why it was to keep the people out. Here we are, look. That's all the way there. And then, it's all just busy port, yes. This is what I'm going to say about, see the sluicing gates here, look, there's one there, another one there. You see some more in a minute. Electric works there, electric works, that's it. ICI works. I keep calling it ICI because it's easier for me. Now, you can hardly see it, but there, anybody know where Sammy Phillips' place is there? On the corner of Big Sammy Phillips Pasty. That was our main gas. 1888, that went to the town gas. But before that, Harvest of Hayle had their own gas. Then right opposite Alston, when they built houses, they had their own tanks and all in there. And they had lights there in 1843. And of course, the Cornish Copper Company, they have a gasworks up there as well. Up near where there's a chip shop and there's a petrol station. There was a gasworks opposite for the Cornish Copper Company. I just put that in. That used to be one you go up to the cricket club, but you can't no more now. 1974, all that shut down and they moved everything up to Cheshire. Now we go on about the lifeboats. I got this there from 1866. This lifeboat was Isis. Where you go in the garden down by Asda, it's called the Isis Gardens. And that the only reason it's called the Isis Garden, the first lifeboat was donated by Oxford University, brought down, in 1866, and that was where it was kept, where the gardens are there now, until 1885. That was the first lifeboat. But that isn't ISIS, that there one is, what's that one called? I'll tell you in a minute, Admiral Rod. It was 3, I don't know the other one, but this was, Admiral Rod didn't say, they saved 95 lives over from 1866 till 1920. And where are they, this is the Admiral Rod over there. This was launching, that there launched, there's the Harbour office now, and this here now is, the launching is still there. This is tracks going into Esso. Anybody remember that Esso was there? They came here in 1923. This is all on North Quay. This was a huge petroleum base, really. Just leaving the depots there. Do you imagine these trains was bringing goods in for ICI for the electric works, as well as also bringing tankers in. When they come from Hayle, come on the thing, they had them come on come down, because Hayle station is a lot higher than what the main road is. But you'll see, should be a photo there. I'll explain it a bit better. This is just on a normal day. It was over on the North Quay. Which is right next to the houses, actually. You won't believe it was with Clifton Terrace. Right next to Clifton Terrace. That was just empty now, it's just a rubbish. It's part of the cliff itself. Closed 1981. You can see the old, from the mid-70s to 1980, then everything closed down, and it was really a dump, really. That's all it was. Now, anybody know where the swimming pool is in Hayle? King George V Memorial Walk. Well, this is where the overflow, 2 million gallons an hour, coming from the ICI works. Now, sadly, nearly 70 years ago, I lost a brother on the spit, by Asda, fell in fishing and got drowned. My mother, because I'm one of 13, by the way, 10 boys and 3 girls. And then mother and father got TV. No, I am one of 10 boys and 3 girls, but anyhow. But mother would let us go over there, and we could sit in there, because she felt safer, because it wasn't very deep. Just a big slope there. But we used to say, when you're with your bedders, lovely and warm, stink to high heaven, but you put your bedders away into the summer, and you come next year, take them out, there ain't nothing left of them. A little bit of rubber land. So you can tell how toxic it was. It wasn't very good at all. I mean, because that's your Clifton Terrace. And Clifton Terrace was built for all the bosses from the Cornish Copper Company. This is a very interesting, people call it Cloggy Bay, what the hell does it matter what you call it? That's what it was called where the swimming pool is. I just want to point out, you know where the swimming pool is. Look at that, look. Row of 5 houses there. Right opposite where the swimming pool was. Row of 5 houses. And they were knocked down in the 1960s. You see, this is the overflow there. This is one of the sluice gates on North Quay. What they've done now on North Quay, if you go over by the Harbour office and you're actually looking, because all this here is scoria block, and you know what scoria block is, the waste from the Cornish Copper Company. As I said, they come in 1756, and by the 1770s they were already making boxes. They didn't know they had 25 furnaces up in the copper house, smelting copper until 1803. They didn't know what to do all the way, so they made blocks. And if you worked for the Cornish Copper Company, you could build your own house free. But the church had to buy them. Sixpence, I think it was, for 20 blocks. But if you go over there now by the Harbour office and look over, you can see that there. There's when all the water comes off from the North Quay, behind the buildings, they've got it in a pipe and it comes out here. So there's still water going all the time. But there is a tunnel as well, which I'm very fortunate to have a film of it. They put a tunnel. I pointed out where I thought the tunnel was. They weren't far along, so they put one of these remote things down there, and then we go up and down, and they sent me the film. This is how bad it was starting to get. Look, all into bits. Now this is what I was going to say. Look at this, look, signal box there. Right opposite here now is a petrol station, down near Phil, there's a petrol station. And as I said, it would come across, look, the trains there, that's a steam train there, I don't know what it is, but it's a steam train. Now, I can remember these. Look, one lot of rails used to go around by Phil's pasty shop, and then down Hempel Terrace, because that was where the first actual train station was. It was down Foundry Square from 1837 until 1852. And that train, that line went all the way up King George's, up to Garrett, and then up into the mines and all. It was from 1837. And there's a signal box there. Now this was the main road. That was the main A30. When they decided they was doing shunting or bring stuff down or bring stuff up, you had to physically get out and shut the gates. If you had an appointment in St Michael's, tough. Because however long you saw that long one with the diesel, all those things, they had to make sure that that train was right up on the top on the station. There's no good in letting them go up halfway because it's quite an incline there. And you start missing a little bit, you'd be going backwards, especially if there's cars going across. So that's what the gates was all about. And you know that Hayle was one of only 3 stations, when we say in the whole country, that had a sand drag. So when they was going up the incline, if there was any problem at all, the people in the signal box would change the lines, and that train, just up past here actually, we could walk up now, that train would go into a pile of sand on the tracks, so that would stop any accidents. This is just unloading, there you can see that. Now, Carnsue, as I said, 1834. Look at, look, see, that's where he's sluicing there now. And he's sluicing there. Of course, when Desabry bought it all, the first thing he done was fill a lot of it all in. Just fill it all in with rubble, so it wouldn't ever work. And they say, there's the sluicing there. Now there, I put these out, look, this is on what we call the spit, where a lot of people walk. There's the South Quay, look, East Quay, and this is North Quay. Rhino barges, right there. These were being built in 1943 for D-Day landings. It was building 21 to a time. They built, I don't know how many hundreds, I've tried to research it a bit, but that's what they were building on the spit, which is right opposite the North Quay itself. And what they would do, they build them up to a certain degree, put camouflage on them, take them all the way around Land's End, and up to Truro, up to Plymouth, and put them in all the rivers and all, and finish them off, ready for D-Day landings. This is a steam packet, well, was a steam packet hotel. We had so many boats coming in, sometimes if you had many as 50 to 60 boats with coal and goods coming into Hayle. Well, if somebody's unloading coal or whatever goods, and the tide is in or going out or whatever, and another boat is coming in, they just had to tie up to the quay, they couldn't go nowhere, they needed somewhere to sleep. So they built the steam packet hotel. I put it approximately 1795, but you can't quite be sure, it could have been 1803. But it wasn't, that's right opposite. There's a Bulls area now by the swimming pool, the little thing playing Bulls. Right opposite there, and I think that bit of wall is still there. And they say it was demolished in 1970. We had horses as well. We had an incident over a few years previous to that when they were shunting, because people used to shunt. I think the shunter went the wrong way, backwards instead of forwards, and ended up going in the harbour. So after that time, British Rail, because of the electric works, the ICI works, and the ESO works, of course, they have Prince and Duke, the 2 horses that they have. They have another one called Major as well. And they were housed up near the actual station, railway station. That was their job, to pull the carriages out. This was a gun-defended area in the Second World War, GDA quoting, but we were the second most important place not to be bombed, really, after Falmouth, because that was the biggest natural harbour in the world. They needed, Germans could come over and go into Falmouth. And this was Hayle as well, it was well guarded. But they didn't know nothing about the GC3. But they did come over and bomb, sadly, the gasworks in St Ives. They never really bought much in Hayle. Might have done them a favour, I don't know. I put this one in. This is a new, I don't sell any flats, so you no need to worry. I'm not selling any flats. But because of the bit of work that I've done for them, they actually asked what I like. There we are, look, that's me up there smiling. Right on top of that new building, where they're £1 million each, they invited me up there from the town to celebrate what we call a topping out, the last load of concrete to go on and girth. When you look there, what a fantastic view, really, isn't it? I think this will be, I don't think any of us here, sounds old thing to say, I don't think any of us here are going to see this lot good. I think nothing much going on at the moment. This is what it's going to look like. This is the building they've got now. Of course, they've done that one there. This is what they're supposed to be going on with, but this is what they're supposed to be looking like eventually. This is just South Peters East.